Okay, I show it's 5 o'clock. Let's get moving here. First of all, thank you all for joining. Good evening. My name is Eric Osgood, Emergency Management Director, Select Board Chair. I'm going to alter from our typical format and go straight to our featured speaker. He's on a hard stop of 5:25. The speaker is Senator Tim Ashe. He's the president of the Senate, Vermont Senate. And he's here to speak to us a little bit about what's going on with NVU. I'm sure that's an interest of most people. And then we'll open it up for Q&As, a little bit of housekeeping. We have Brian, who will be probably shutting off everyone's mics. And if your mic is on now, please mute. And he will recognize speakers. We're going to try to keep them to a minute so we can get as many people in as possible. We also have Meredith, who will be monitoring messages. And so if you want to put a question in through that format, that is available as well. And with that, it gives me great privilege. And thank you, Senator Ashe, for joining us. You're on.
All right.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you, everybody, for having me. Thank you, Eric. I'm not sure if privilege is the right word for having me, but I appreciate the welcome. I obviously wish that I was here talking to you about lots of things going on in state government and not Northern Vermont University's current situation. I'll give you just a quick sense of where we've been over the last number of years, and then what we experienced literally a week ago today, and where I see things heading in the days ahead. So we've known, I think anyone who's paid particular attention to our public higher education system in Vermont, that there have been some challenges, some of which are historical, relating to not being a state that provides a tremendous sum of funds for operating our state colleges compared to others. We also have demographic trends, which are well established, and our state colleges, which, unlike the University of Vermont, draws more heavily from in-state students. If there are fewer kids graduating from Vermont high schools, obviously the pipeline has been somewhat reduced. So those are challenges that we've been well aware of. We also, in the legislature, have been confronted on a frequent basis with requests for additional operating money. And these have not exactly been the easiest 10 years in terms of budgets in the state for all of our needs. And we have had leadership from the Chancellor's office on several occasions come to us and say, if we can just get X number of millions more, everything will be stable for the future. And the most recent experience along those lines was about 2 years ago. The legislature stepped up, provided the funds that we were told would be sufficient, only for us to hear the next year that an even larger sum was necessary to create a stable budget environment for the state college system. And so the challenges have been well known, although the severity of Friday's announcement was not appreciated. So during this COVID-19 new normal we've had, we know that higher ed across the country and here in Vermont have been suffering from a few ailments. One, the requirement or the voluntary decision by many institutions, including the state college system, to provide some type of reimbursement to students for room and board, particularly since they're not on campus. That has had a major financial impact on a lot of institutions, even though I think it's the right thing to do. But then second, this crisis has had a chilling effect on higher education in general, which means that worries about declining enrollment are just stressed even further, because students right now who are thinking about where to go to school are wondering if it's worth enrolling in a residential 2 or 4 year program, knowing that there may be a stay-at-home order if this virus either persists or makes a comeback in the fall. And so people, I think, across the country are evaluating the financial risk they want to make in terms of potential college enrollment. So on Thursday of last week, we had heard some rumors that there was going to be an announcement from the Chancellor's office. And so Friday morning, I called. So my role as the president of the Senate, while we've been working remotely, has been to try to keep everyone unified in terms of the information we're receiving, and the ability for everyone to ask questions of the key players on the different parts of our state response to COVID-19. But we set up what we call a all Senate discussion. So all 30 of us were on an open meeting like this where anyone in the world could listen. And some of you, I think, maybe did last Friday morning. And at that time, there was some speculation about what we might learn from the chancellor's office that day. But until actually Senator Westman received some notice of just how dramatic the proposal was going to be, most of us were in the dark. So on Friday, we learned 3 campuses were going to be proposed to be closed just 2.5 days later. I will skip the speechifying and just tell you how inappropriate it is to tell 3 communities, the students, the faculty, the staff, the local officials, that the rug is being pulled out from you 2 days from now. Oh, and we hope you appreciate we just told you. So the speaker and I, over the weekend, and we talked to Rich and the other senators. I talked to the senators from the host communities on the Senate side. I'm sure the speaker did the same on the House side. And on Sunday morning, we issued a statement falling just short of directing the trustees to postpone their vote, which we thought was an insult to the host communities and all the people that were affected. We laid out the skeleton of a path forward, knowing that the postponement was the first key thing that needed to happen, and then we could flesh out what comes next after that. We were, I think, relieved, as were I hope most of you, that the trustees later that day did announce that they would postpone their vote. They said they'd postpone it a week. It wasn't clear what that meant. In the meantime, the speaker, me, handful of others have been in a few discussions with the governor, the governor's team, one or two direct meetings with the chancellor and the chair of the board of trustees, where they have, for the first time, really tried to explain how dire they believe the finances are. They provided effectively a summary of what they believe the challenges ahead were. They made the case for their dramatic proposal. We reiterated we thought it was inappropriate. And then the question was, okay, well, what now? And so, second bit of relief, obviously, when the trustees asked the chancellor to pull back his proposal, but it doesn't mean that everything else is resolved. It means that now we have to figure out what comes next. So let me tell you what I see as the immediate steps, and then the just after immediate steps. The immediate steps, in my opinion, there are 2. The first is we will ask the treasurer, Beth Pierce, to have her team take a look at the finances of the state college system and the respective campuses, not to provide the deep analysis that really does need to eventually happen, but to at least give the legislature a starting understanding of precisely how tough things really are in terms of the state college system's books right now. We have heard representations that for $25 million a year, it might buy a year, patch over things for a year. But other than hearing that articulated out loud, we haven't actually been able to verify what is or isn't the right sum of funds to help get us to whatever comes next. So the treasurer's office doing like a higher level highlight version of an analysis is something that has to start happening immediately. The second is we need a tally of all of the deficit to close out this school year. We know that the COVID-19 reimbursements and a few other challenges have left the state college system in a tough bind for this academic calendar year. And that's something that the legislature, and I see a few like Dan Noyes on here as well, we'll figure out a way to make sure that the state college system can pay its bills for the current school year. So then that just gets us like an immediate set of steps to set us on the way of a more appropriate process to decide the future configuration of the system. What I believe has to happen after that, and these discussions start effectively immediately. So when I say after that, I mean just after those 2 key immediate steps. we need to enlist outside expertise that can accomplish two things. First, we need someone who can do the deeper dive on the financial outlook for the state college system. The treasurer can do an initial one that will give us some sense of the nature of each campus's challenges, or if they're in good shape, better shape than has been presented. But we need the deeper understanding of all of the assets and liabilities of each campus, debt debt that each campus holds, pension issues, healthcare, all the things contributing to the different challenges at each of the campuses. But more important than that, we need someone who actually has experience taking a public higher ed system that's got challenges and who has helped move it to a healthier, sustainable place. There are no shortage of public higher education systems in this country that have been going through situations just like what we're looking at here in Vermont. And some of them presumably didn't do a great job in terms of transitioning to a better future. However, I'm hoping some did. So we need to bring someone in who has not just buzzwords like creativity and innovation, but someone who actually knows what it's like to take a system that's under some duress and get it to a better place. And so we need to bring someone like that on board. We also have to figure out what it takes to have a healthy 2020-2021 school year budget to make sure that the faculty, staff, and students know what to expect for the upcoming year, and that signals that the students who are enrolling are going to get a high quality education, that the bills are going to be paid, and that we're having a thoughtful process about what's next. And then the last piece I'll say, and this might be of particular interest to many of the people in Johnson or anybody else on this call who's from near Johnson, we need to figure out how to meaningfully include the voices of the various constituencies who are most directly impacted by whatever proposal prevails at the end of the day. Students have a lot to say about what the future ought to look like, what programs are in highest demand, which ones will attract more students. Faculty have a lot to say about how they may readjust the offerings to be either more appealing or more flexible. Staff have a lot to say about ways we can manage the costs differently. And then local communities, by that I mean town officials, employers, have a lot to say about partnerships that have been unexplored or unexploited that might actually provide additional support. So my vision, and this is Tim speaking, one of my jobs is to be the whipping post if things aren't going well. But what I'm articulating has really been synthesized from the other 29 senators as we've talked about this. But my vision would be that this process I've just described with the financial and programmatic aspects, that it would have a conclusion sometime at the end of this calendar year, by December 2020, because that will allow everyone to be able to evaluate it and then start to adjust over a transition period, rather than have a bucket of ice cold water dumped right over everyone's head the day before they have to make college enrollment decisions. So I'll stop there. That's kind of maybe more words than you hope to hear from me, but just thought that would be helpful with where we've been and where I think we might head. So happy to, I'm not sure, Eric, if you were hoping there'd be some Q&A, which I'm happy to do. And
yeah, that was the intent. And I'm looking to Brian to pick someone with their hand up.
All right, I've got Walter Pomeroy up first. Go ahead, Walter.
Thank you, Senator, for coming to see us tonight. I've looked over the Chancellor's budget numbers that he presented to the board the other day. So I want to make two quick comments. First, nowhere does his numbers support that $25 million. So you need to have people look at that. Two, and I think the more important argument that needs to be made here is his transformation 5-year budget says net tuition revenue is going to go down by $46 million. $46 million is actually attached to students. That's attached to real people. So he is saying we are going to shift $46 million worth of students out of state. We keep hearing about this demographic crisis. He is basically saying, I give up. I'm going to send all these students, our future, the people who are going to pay the taxes in this state. He is saying, get out of town, leave, go. I think that right there is the biggest argument to save these colleges. This is our future. These youths are our future. And he's basically giving up on them and telling them, please leave the state. Thank you for hearing me out.
Well, I won't get into the chancellor's thinking about the particular question or point you make, but I will I'll say that the issue of keeping students on campus or in the system to help make the system healthier is a really critical one. One of the things we've been really pushing the chancellor's office to do the last few years is to put more resources and effort into the retention of students. Johnson and Lydon, the retention rates are not what they should be and what they could be. And every student who doesn't complete their education on campus, it's both saddles them with debt for which they do not have a diploma to show for it, but it also deprives the system of the annual tuition revenues. So your point's very well made. I think we have to be mindful that the system has to do a better job keeping students. It's had a lackluster record, and it's one of the things that has to be part of, a sound Vermont State College infrastructure looking ahead.
Great. All right. Next up, I've got Shane Spence. Go ahead, Shane.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Senator, for joining us tonight. So one of the big things that a lot of us have seen as an issue in retention and enrollment in the schools is the tuitions that keep going up year after year after year. And the promise that was made to Vermonters in setting up the Vermont State College system was that these would be funded in substantial part by the state government. And, you've heard the numbers, I'm sure 17% is nowhere near that. So my question to you is, what are some of the obstacles to making that happen? And, I do want to thank you for being on the leading edge of people to speak up about this, because I do think you saying something, the full Senate saying something, was a significant kind of kick in the pants for the trustees to think twice about it. But will you commit to getting us to that funded in substantial part by state government point?
Well, let me answer that in a couple ways. First, to tell you, so I've actually taught 4 courses in the state college system. So my familiarity with the students and my recognition of how important a geographically accessible higher education system is based on experience. I taught 1 course at Johnson. I'm not sure I did a very good job. And I taught 3 courses at the CCV campus in St. Albans, where I had a little bit more seasoning at that point and really enjoyed it. The point you make about a system that in its inception was meant to be well funded by state government is, like many things in state government life, and not just in Vermont but elsewhere, reflects a lot of changes that have happened over the last number of decades. So the first way you asked was, what is an impediment to providing the level of funding which would honor the original founding legislation? And I'll cut right to the chase. This is not a political statement, but I believe a recognition of reality, which is there are some people, including some who will say that they're very supportive of preserving the status quo at the state college system, who believe you can have it all ways. They want to believe that you don't have to raise new revenues, you don't have to cut any programs, but you can tell people on the campuses of the 3 state colleges that you want them to get more money. Well, if you take those 3 things I just said, they can't all go together. And so for the last 4 years, and the governor has been duly elected, and he's doing a great job during this crisis, and I'm not here to debate the broader political philosophies right now, but he has been absolutely adamant that he would veto any new revenues of any kind that would fund anything. So if that's the case, it means you're effectively flatlining the ability to spend on things while we've got healthcare increases, we've got higher education cost increases, we've got public education cost increases. So then the question is, if you're going to increase on one thing, you have to cut somewhere else. And that's been the primary constraints we're under. So I offer that not as an excuse, but just as the budget reality about why more dollars haven't easily flowed to the higher ed system. The second thing is discussions about, I'm about to get like a sunburn here, hold on. Discussions about how to come up with more money for the state college system almost invariably, and you will start hearing this, it's already starting to come out from some quarters, including, I think, from a couple legislators who represent areas impacted the chancellor's proposal. They would prefer that we cut K through 12 spending and then ship the money to the state college system. And I'll briefly tell you why. I respect people who have differences of opinion for sure, but one of the arguments I've heard about the importance of Lydon and Johnson and VTC and Randolph, which I absolutely believe, is that it's absolutely critical that people in the more rural communities have access to higher education. I do not think the solution to that is to deteriorate K through 12 education, which disproportionately benefits those very same rural communities. So be very cautious if you see people starting to pit the K through 12 system against the, 13 to 16, the college age system. So that's a little bit wordy, but that's my best answer. Hopefully it helps at least give some sense of my, the thought process that we have to face on our side.
Thank you. And next up, I've got Brady Rainville.
Yes, thank you to all the legislators who are here tonight. One thing that concerns me about the budget here is that I learned at Johnson that a budget is a list of priorities. And so while I'm not advocating for other people to lose their funding, I'm advocating that our legislators please prioritize us, because this issue has been going on since I was born. And to read articles dating back to the early 2000s about how we were 49th in the country for funding our higher education, and then that still being true today, it doesn't add up to me when we're saying that we can't find that money. It's out there. We just need to look harder for it, and we need to do better for our higher education. And that funding is why we're not, our retention rates aren't where they need to be, because we are serving those Pell eligible students, and our tuition is too high because we have to rely on tuition to survive. So I think it's really important that, the legislators, and I appreciate you all that are on this call for what you've done to get us through to the point where we are now, but it's up to everyone to come together and look forward to how we can move forward. So when students come to me in my advising office, I can assure them that we're going to be here not just for this upcoming year, but in the future.
I think that's going to be the trick, Brady, is if there's a process to think about what a healthy system will look like moving forward, which won't be just about dollars, although it's a significant part of it. The question will be the extent to which it's a truly open-minded, if you will, process versus one that presupposes certain things must be in place on the other side of it. So I'm very determined that it won't just be a discussion held by, some, well-suited consultant person who drops in from Mars to tell us what he or she thinks, but that we also have some kind of structure where local voices are being heard. I don't think we can really, to be honest, I don't think we can have any one constituency have veto power over the ultimate decision about how to move forward. But I think our trustees, the Board of Trustees of the system and the Chancellor have done a real disservice to all of the constituent community members of the system by effectively closing them out of this so far. and scaring the daylights of everyone. And I'll just say a quick word about that, and then I might have time for one quick question if there's another one. You know, some people have said, oh, was this just a gambit by the chancellor to force the legislature to do what it has not been able or willing to do in the past? And I always operate under the assumption that people operate in good faith. I have to believe that if it was a gambit, it would have been a very, very destructive one, because obviously it's not positive for people all around the region to be reading news stories about whether the college campus would even be there if they choose to enroll going into this coming school year. So I think the sooner we get past the motives, we can just acknowledge the plan was too sudden and too drastic, and then focus, looking forward on a thoughtful process. So I've got time for one quick one, and I'll just tell you, I do a 5:30 daily update on the COVID response on Facebook every day. That's the only reason I have to abandon you.
All right, I've got Beth Foy up next.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Beth.
Thanks for joining us, Senator. We really, really appreciate it. My question for you is around oversight from the Chancellor's office. They clearly are incapable of innovative thinking. And so my question for the Senate is, clearly we need more funding, and clearly we need to make that a priority. I think that message has been received. But my question is, how are you holding the Chancellor's office accountable for one being, once the funding is there at a level that is appropriate, how are you holding them accountable for the sustainability longer term and what the Chancellor's office is putting out?
Well, Beth, it's a good question, and I have a general response, but because it's just hit us like a ton of bricks, I don't have a very specific response. The general response I have is that we, I believe, need to precondition the bridge funding for the next year on a process that doesn't leave everything in the hands of the Chancellor and the Board of Trustees. We've seen the two options they gave us: status quo and fail, or close 3 campuses immediately. And if we believe that there are other alternatives, which I believe there are other alternatives, I don't think it's good enough to say, oh, Chancellor, we didn't like what you did the first time, we'll give you another shot. I think there has to be agreement between the system and state government by selecting outside experts who will come in, present options, allow for a structured community participation before we kind of return to a new set of options for the long term. So the short answer is, I would expect that we would precondition the bridge funding on a process that is not commandeered by the very people who floated the proposal 1 week ago today. So with that, I'm sorry I have to jump, because if you knew how bad I am technologically, I'm gonna have 30 seconds to figure out a live thing. And it usually goes badly, but at least I'm usually on time. So thank you all. And I'm sorry that you've had to, let me just conclude. I'm sorry you've all had to go through a communication of such a proposal the way you did. I still play a lot of competitive sports, and one of the prime takeaways I have from that is fair play, and that there's a right way to play the game. This is not a game. I don't mean to make light of it that way, but there's a right way and a wrong way to communicate things to people, to make decisions. I think we can all agree, probably this is a unanimous crowd on this one, the way that the Chancellor and the board went about this was all wrong. And I'm glad that we were able to step in, put the brakes on it. And now it's incumbent on all of us to get it right moving forward. So my commitment is to do everything I can, working with Rich and Mark McDonald, who represents VTC in Randolph, and Jane Kitchell and Joe Benning, who are up at the Lydon campus, to see how we can have a healthy, sustainable system moving forward.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you all. Yeah. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. So get back into our regular format. A couple of things that I wanted to bring up on what the select board's head for changes. As you've been hearing, the governor is slowly starting to open the spigot, and that's enabled us to start allowing attorneys into the office for title searches. It's by appointment only. You got to get through Rosemary, and you got to wear a mask and all kinds of requirements like that. The May 10th tax due date, the final one. The select board has come up with a resolution on how to help those that may be struggling through COVID-19. An allowable way to have your late tax and penalty forgiven or delayed, I should say, is by abatement, and it'll be an abatement hearing, and you have to formally apply for that. But we'll have some notification coming out shortly with the process. Also, the select board decided to go ahead with the townwide reappraisal. That'll be rolling out at the end of May. There were pros and cons of it, but at the end, it was felt that there was more reasons to do it than not. And so the select board did take those two actions. We'll have some announcements later. I know Greg Savansky wants to update us on Capstone. There's a food shelf parade coming in, we're organizing, as well as there was some village initiatives that Gordy was going to speak to. So I'll turn it over to Gordy Smith now.
Okay, Gordy, go ahead.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, everyone. I thought this first 30 minutes has been excellent, very informative. And speaking for the village trustees, we have a special trustee meeting this coming Monday night. The agenda is posted, and part of our agenda will be when and where we will have our village annual meeting, which is supposed to have been in April, but we're going to try to have a discussion and see if we can do it in June. We aren't sure about if it's going to be in person or by mail or ballots and so forth, but there'll be an interesting discussion this Monday night. And I talked to Eric about an hour and a half ago. A lot of the focus, which is life safety, is primary. We all know this. And we're all working with our neighbors and our seniors and our handicapped people and disabled. And we're doing an excellent job with the food shelf and so forth. And if when you're in the services, the property comes behind life safety. So I just got a little episode that happened last night to show that with the people that are out of work, and as they continue, times are going to get harder. They're going to get more desperate, and there's going to be break-ins and people stealing things. So my point is, it's kind of like a neighborhood watch. We need to not only make sure our neighbors and our friends and relatives have the food and the supplies and the things that they need and the safety of them, but we also need to watch the properties, that when people are gone, for the ones that are working or are away for a while, because what happened last night at my son's house on up Clay Hill, it's not a house to live in yet, but it's under renovation, was he pulled in the yard and there was a van in the yard. And the person was coming out of the house, which was locked, with some of his belongings. So he blocked the vehicle, and thanks to the sheriff's department, they were there within 5 minutes. This individual was from Essex Junction. So why is he in Johnson? So my point is a tangent from all of our big things like NVU and a virus is take care of our people, but also let's watch for our neighbors and different vehicles and people. And if something isn't right, speak up or do something about it. So that's my side speech on everything else that's going on. So with that, Eric, I'm all set, and thank you.
Thank you, Gordy. That's a good thing to share with everyone, and everyone to be on the outlook, not only for your neighbors, but your neighbor's property as well. If you see something suspicious, call the sheriff's office, and certainly a shout out to our sheriff's department for being out there on the front line every day with us and helping us. For those of you who may have seen the governor's, may not have seen the governor's news conference today, there has been some loosening of the spigot, opening of it. They're increasing outside job crews to 5 now, and some job sites can now have up to 5. Some manufacturings can open if they have 5 employees. As well as there was Congressman Welch on the call, and the amount of money that the Congress has approved. I think it was just shy of $500 billion that will be coming out to the states to help with the small businesses. And another thing, as of Monday, they will be starting to issue and show the positives by town instead of just by county, which will be, I think, nice to know for everyone. Okay, that about wraps it up for what Gordy and I had, but we can open it up for questions before we go to Lisa with the update on the recreational. So,
Right. Walter has a question.
Yes, for both Eric and Gordy. Now that the governor has relaxed the restrictions, it'd be really nice if the select board and the trustees would get their crews out to start cleaning up the winter debris. The old saying, if you look good, you feel good. And I think just to support our merchants so that we have Johnson looking really, really good the moment they can open their doors, we can, support them as best we can. So when you can and how you can, and can we take down the snowflakes and put up our summer banners and start trying to really move forward in terms of getting the town looking good would be really, really helpful. Thank you.
and thank you, Walter. I'll speak on behalf of the town. That was new news as of today. There's guidelines that is going to come out from VOSHA. We got to train all of our employees before they can even start work. But yes, that would be the intent, that we could get our highway and public works department back to work. And I'll turn it over to Gordy to answer the village.
There you go. Thank you. I hear you loud and clear, Walter, and I've been waiting for this day to where we can get our sidewalks and our streets swept and clean, get the banners up, and I want to work with Kyle on beautification. I know she's raring to go between the town and village for the flowers and landscaping, so we hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
I would just also add that we are, the select board, taking advantage of this time, and what still is within the guidelines of the orders of the governor are allowing some work to be done at the skate park. That's it has to be closed anyhow, and there's no skaters there, and this work would have interrupted that. So it's a perfect timing. We're going to take advantage of that. We authorize that. So any other question?
Dan Noyes had his hand up. Let me.
Dan also has an announcement to make.
Yeah, did you want, I was raising my hand to make the announcement, so
Go
let me
for
know
it.
when.
Go for it.
All right. Sorry, so earlier this week, Representative Rogers, Hill, and Senator Westman and I put together a front porch forum post and asked people to sign up to pitch our ideas. We're going to have a lot of work in the upcoming months to kind of figure this thing out in the legislature. So we've put together a pitch session on Saturday morning tomorrow at 9 o'clock. It's going to be put out on YouTube, and we have a whole bunch, we've got 20 people signed up to pitch their ideas and ask questions. So we wanted to set it up where people could just talk about what does this look like going forward? So in the chat section, I put a link to the YouTube page so that people can take a look at it. We'll be starting tomorrow at 9. Hope to see you there.
Thank you, Dan. If Greg wants to pipe in as well on his food or capstones update.
Okay, I'll give it a shot here. First of all, just wanted to say thank you to Eric and Gordy and our trustees and select board, and also the staff who are supporting our town and village right now. It's amazing what you've done in keeping us connected. I almost feel like I'm on Main Street last Sunday again, seeing so many people here. So thank you. And also, I know that some messages have been coming out from Leah Hollenberger, so looking for ideas for the future of NVU and the Vermont State College system. And so I just want to express my appreciation for getting the opportunity to do that. In my role at Capstone Community Action, I am working with a group of folks to coordinate a community response specifically to health and human services and how our community is being impacted by COVID-19. I believe I've shared a version of this document a few weeks ago. It's been updated, and right now you can see a lot of people playing very important roles. And our focus is really on this area here, our 5 operations groups. So looking at issues of food, mental health and substance misuse, employment, medical, and shelter. This past week, there was a lot of focus on shelter as we transitioned folks who had been at the Lamoille Community House into hotel settings, and then made sure that they were getting the proper assessments in terms of medical needs and also mental health and substance misuse, and also coordinating with the Sheriff's Department and Morristown PD and Stowe PD to make sure that those places are staying as safe as possible. So just wanted to share this and let folks know that we're working on a community response. We've got some great connections in the medical world and are very pleased to hear the data showing that the overall medical impact is less than what was anticipated. The employment is our next area of concern, as we're seeing over 2,000 people in our county unemployed at this point. And so keeping a close eye on individuals, but also our businesses who've been impacted. And finally, recognizing that this period of time is putting an extra layer of stress for all of us. And it was very early on that Eric had reached out to me and was coordinating an effort in the community to make sure that that neighbors were checking on neighbors, especially folks who might get isolated and be struggling with just trying to understand and process what's happening right now. So I'll throw my email address in the chat box. So if folks would like to get on, we are sending out a weekly newsletter. The next one will go out on Monday, and happy to take questions or if folks want to be added to that newsletter. And like I said, I will put my email address in the chat box. And thank you for giving me a chance to share an update.
Thank you, Greg. And I also had a request to remind everyone to sign up if they have not done so with the U.S. Census. Those numbers help the town of Johnson. Is there anyone else? Got anything? Any questions, concerns, issues? Probably it'd be a good time if Kyle wants to talk about what her plans are for next Saturday.
Okay, thank you, Eric. So Johnson Works is organizing a downtown food bank parade. So this would entail on May 2nd at 1 o'clock. That's a Saturday. So this would entail folks dropping off food donations to specific locations dotted throughout the village. And then a separate group of folks in different kind of vehicles, including a fire truck and some police cars and some old-fashioned cars, would parade through the village picking up their donations along the way to the food shelf. So this is an idea that we've put together to help the food shelf out that desperately needs it, and also to sort of lift our spirits and in a safe way. So we're working out the details about the safety piece. That's pretty complicated, but we think it's doable, and we're going to continue to communicate with the community on how we can put best practices into place when we're donating food, picking it up, transferring it, those sorts of things. But rumor has it the MVU mascot may make an appearance, and the Lamoille mascot, and so we're just trying to make it really fun for the community while we also stay safe and help out the food shelf. So that's that. So stay tuned. We'll be putting a lot of information out on Facebook and also Front Porch Forum in the next week. Thank you,
Kyle. Oh, Senator Westman, you still on?
Well, I just wanted to say on behalf of everybody at NVU, we are so grateful for the outpouring of support, and it's been so incredibly meaningful, and we've heard from so many people, and we've already have so many ideas that we're collecting that we hope you continue to offer them, and we look forward to working with you to re-envision what NVU and the rest of the system will become for the future. But truly, it has been incredibly amazing. You are just an incredible community, and we're so proud and we're so grateful for all of the support. And I know President Collins would extend her thanks as well.
Thank you. Thank you guys, and good luck. And we're right there with you and behind you. And along that thread, like I said, I'm not sure if Senator Westman is still on, but Senator Ashe indicated, what's this call going to have? 10 people on it? Well, from what I was able to observe, the top number I saw was 165. So Richie, you can get that number back.
I will text him immediately and let him know how many people were on the call.
Yeah.
So
And
on my
thank
count,
you.
I had over 180 at one point.
Oh, 180. Okay.
That's even better number. And I will text him and let him know. I just want to say how proud I am of the community. And, we've got a lot of work to do, but I'm very proud of the community.
And a lot more optimistic than I was a week ago.
Both of us.
Okay, anyone else have anything they'd like to bring up? And Brian, I probably can't see all hands, so you're gonna have to moderate.
We don't have anybody with hands up, and I don't think I have anybody waiting from messages either. Oh, Ben Luce has a comment.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ben.
Thank you. I'm trying to get my camera on here. All right. So thank you very much for letting me attend this meeting and for inviting Senator Ashe on and letting others of us hear what he had to say on this issue. I want to just express an opinion, and I think it's an opinion that I've been expressing consistently, and I'll try to make this brief because I know you have better things to do. He has laid out an idea that we need an extensive study process of the colleges before there can be firm commitments to restoring funding. I strongly oppose this idea on the following grounds. In fact, our state colleges, NVU and VTC, are actually very efficient institutions already. And if there's a long, extensive study process, I have it on fairly good information from people inside the administrations of these institutions that they will likely collapse by December due to the loss of confidence amongst parents and students, both in students we would be able to otherwise recruit and students that we would be able to retain. This closure proposal has deeply, deeply shaken the confidence, and it's not only that, it has become regionally known in states where we attract out-of-state students. And it will be very hard for parents and students to want to commit to an institution that does not have a clear financial path going forward. Secondly, the fundamental problem we have is the low level of state funding. And the senator didn't mention it, but I want to make sure people know what that number is. We are only funded at the 17% level. Almost every state in the union is funded at the 35 to 75% level. This requires us to charge higher tuition than we otherwise would. That's part of our enrollment problem and part of our retention problem right there. We have a lot of students we can't retain because they have to take semesters off or drop off to work jobs just to pay the high tuition. So the notion we have of fundamental retention problems that have to be fixed without funding is actually also not correct. It's basically a false narrative. What I believe we need to do as a body, as a community, is we need to urge the legislature to commit now to restoring the percentage of funding up to at least about 35%. This is note that this is not the absolute level of funding. The absolute level of funding can be adjusted as we deal with whatever enrollments we get. For example, we have already downsized a great deal, and we've already realigned a lot of programs to take care of the demographic downturn. We do not have a big problem with demographic or enrollment issues right now. We can adjust to that. What we need is that the percentage of funding has to be minimally adequate and comparative with other states. So my feeling about that is if we don't get that commitment within a few weeks, we might as well throw in the towel. That has to happen. And I am not seeing the senator or other legislators yet break through that glass ceiling and get past that narrative that we have got a big problem that they need to solve first. And I urge you all to focus on that as the major step now to saving these institutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. We do have entertainment tonight, but is Beth raising her hand for some?
Beth is.
I am raising my hand. Can I just quickly, sorry. So I had this on my list for the senator, but I didn't have time, so I chose not to ask it. But I think that Ben's point is a really important one, because when we talk about losing the colleges, we need to couple that with the economic growth that comes with it. And I think we all need to be really active in pushing both the legislature as well as the administration, as well as all different parties, frankly, to work toward marketing campaigns to help rectify the damage that was caused by the announcement, because it was a national announcement. As we noted in our last week's call, it went national. So I think that we need to really push for funding to get some marketing efforts out there. And just along those marketing lines, to say that the revenues are down because it's directly correlated to the Vermont student population, I don't doubt that's true. But again, marketing efforts will bring out-of-state students in. We heard that over and over again from out-of-state students coming to our NVU campuses. So I think that we all need to continue to be really vocal about all of these pieces. I think we need to get some changes in the chancellor's office, but that's one piece, and it's not going to be enough to just do that one piece. We all have to push for all of the other pieces that go around that. So Dan and Matt and Senator Westman, my ask of you guys is to really fight for marketing to help with the impact that this made nationally to the reputation of our schools. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Beth. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa now and her portion of the program.
Thanks everybody for hanging in there. This has been a very exciting conversation this evening and an exciting week here in Johnson. The Johnson Recreation Committee has been trying to come up with some ideas for things we can do while we are home. And if you go to our website, johnsonrecreationvt.com, you'll see several pages with ideas for things to do. We have 1 week left in our April activity challenge and $250 in local gift cards on the line for those who complete and join our raffle. All the information for that is on our website. We still are hosting our virtual walk team, Johnson Strong, and the members of that team have been moving around this town with vigor, and we have had lots and lots of steps recorded. So good job, everybody. I want to thank everybody who's participated in the teddy bear hunt. We continue to find new bears each day as we go around the town. Some people have been very sneaky in where they've hid them, and it's a great joy for the children. I know my girls are really enjoying it. On May 9th, we will be participating in the Miles for My Community, which is a virtual race and fundraiser, and it raises money for recreation programs around the country. And the final thing, the new thing this week, is the Red Cross has put a free online class up, and it's called Mental Health First Aid for COVID-19. And so if you would like to take that, that's on our website. And it is, as I said, free online class, Mental Health First Aid for COVID-19, sponsored by the Red Cross. In their messaging, they also made a point to say that they are very, very short of blood right now. And so if you are interested in donating blood, they're following all of the safety procedures. And you can get an appointment by calling the Red Cross in Burlington, and they will help you find a way to do that safely. It is with great pleasure tonight that we introduce Autumn Chamberlain. She is a sophomore at NVU Lydon. double majoring in music business and industry and performance and self-promotion and audio production. So sticking with our Save NVU, there's lots of great things happening there. Welcome, Autumn, and thank you for your time tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you, Lisa, for the introduction. Before I start, I want to thank all 87 of you who stuck around for this. This is the largest performance I've had in quite a long time. Song I'm going to be sharing is an original song. It's called Silver Lining, and the title's fairly self-explanatory, but remaining optimistic. And I feel that it's really important to remain optimistic during these trying times. I hope you like it. Everybody's looking for the pot to go, their pockets handy, hearts on empty. And if I said I haven't been there myself, I'd be lying to you. I've been through the storm, downpour. You know it isn't funny when the days aren't always sunny. No, they won't be warm. And you're trying just to stay on shore. Well, start your mind for that silver lining. It's so satisfying just to know in time that it'll be alright. Everything is gonna turn out right. It'll be alright. Everything is gonna turn out right. And everybody's hanging on their heads around, their eyes face downward, round face forward. And if I said I haven't been there myself, battered, bruised, and weak, then need to reinforce post-war. Yeah, I've been through all the wickets, and you think you have a minute, it'll throw one more. But I know one thing to be sure, I'll still be mining for that silver lining. It's so satisfying just to know in time that it'll be alright. Everything is gonna turn out right. It'll be alright. Everything is gonna turn out right. When your hands are overflowing with gold and it's just not fitting, don't start quitting. Don't you listen to whatever you're told, let it flow right through you. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. You never know what's gonna be in store. Be a shining light and open the door. And keep on mining for that silver lining. It's so satisfying just to know in time that it'll be alright. Everything is gonna turn out right. It'll be alright. Everything is gonna turn out right. I'll still be mining for that silver lining. It's so satisfying just to know in time that it'll be alright. Everything is gonna turn out right. It'll be alright. Everything is gonna turn out right. Thank you. I can't hear the applause, but I feel it in my heart and I see it on the screen. Thanks for having me join, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Autumn, for joining. That was wonderful.
Yeah, thank you, Autumn, and thank everyone for coming in tonight. A really good turnout, and I think someone else said it. Very proud of this community and all of the support for NVU. Thank you all. Have a nice weekend. It's supposed to be beautiful tomorrow. Night.
Good night. Thanks, everyone.